Everything you were taught about money is wrong. Not slightly wrong, completely, embarrassingly wrong, according to the people who actually studied it. You paid for your coffee this morning without a second thought. A tap of your card, a number changed somewhere on a server, and the transaction was over before you'd even picked up the cup. You didn't think about what money actually is. Almost nobody does. But the real story of how your species invented it is stranger, older, and far less tidy than you were ever taught. Here's the version most people grew up believing. Before money, humans bartered. You'd trade a chicken for a pair of shoes, a sack of grain for a clay pot. Eventually, this system got clunky, so humans invented coins to make trading easier. Simple, logical, tidy. It's also, according to the evidence, almost entirely made up. An anthropologist named Caroline Humphrey spent years searching for a single documented society in human history that ran primarily on pure barter, chicken for shoes. No money involved at all. She never found one. Not one confirmed case, anywhere, at any point in the archaeological or historical record. The barter economy, the one you were taught as fact in school, appears to be a story economists told each other, not something that ever actually happened at scale. So if barter isn't where money came from, where did it come from? This is where an anthropologist named David Graeber built a very different picture, one drawn from thousands of years of records across dozens of ancient societies. And his answer starts somewhere you wouldn't expect. Not with trade between strangers, with debt between neighbors. Think about your own small community, if you had one thousands of years ago. You know everyone. You see the same 50 or 60 people every single day of your life. If your neighbor needs grain and you have extra, you don't demand an immediate trade. You just give it to them. You remember that they owe you one. Not a number, not a receipt, a feeling. A social memory, held loosely, that gets repaid eventually, in whatever form makes sense, whenever it makes sense. That's not barter, that's credit. And Graeber's research suggests credit, not barter, was the original economic system of human societies. Long before coins existed, long before anyone wrote a number down, humans were running enormous, invisible ledgers of favors, debts, and obligations, held entirely in memory and reinforced by social pressure. Why does this matter? Because it flips the entire story of money on its head. Money wasn't invented to replace barter. Money may have been invented to formalize debt, to give a shape and a number to something that used to live only in memory and trust. So when did that shift happen? When did an invisible social ledger become a physical object you could hold? The earliest known written records of debt come from ancient Mesopotamia, roughly 5,000 years ago, carved into clay tablets. Temples and palaces kept track of grain owed, labor owed, silver owed, using a unit of account long before actual silver coins existed. You could owe someone a debt measured in silver without a single coin changing hands. The number existed. The metal didn't need to move. This is a strange thing to sit with. Money, in its earliest documented form, wasn't a thing you carried. It was a number you remembered, or a mark someone else kept for you. Coins came much later, and when they finally arrived, they didn't spread for the reason you'd assume. You might picture merchants inventing coins to make daily trading easier. The historical pattern points somewhere else entirely. Many of the earliest coinage systems, in ancient Lydia and later across Greek city-states, appear closely tied to paying soldiers. An army needs a portable, standardized way to pay thousands of men who are far from home, who can't be handed a share of grain or cattle on a battlefield. A small stamped piece of metal solves that problem instantly. Soldiers spin the coins in nearby towns. Merchants start accepting them because they know soldiers will keep coming back with more. A monetary economy spreads outward from an army, not from a marketplace. War, more than trade, may be what actually pushed coinage into everyday life. Now, here's where the story gets genuinely strange, and where an economic historian named Karl Polanyi adds a crucial piece. Polanyi argued that in most ancient economies, exchange wasn't even the primary way goods moved through society at all. Redistribution was. A central authority, a temple, a chief, a king, would collect goods from the community and then redistribute them according to social need, status, or ritual obligation. Trade between equals, using something resembling money, was often a smaller secondary activity happening around the edges of a much larger system built on obligation and hierarchy. In other words, for most of human history, money wasn't really about buying and selling at all. It was about who owed what to whom, and who had the authority to decide. That idea should feel oddly familiar, because it hasn't actually gone anywhere. Think about how much of your own financial life still runs on invisible ledgers of trust rather than physical exchange. your salary, your rent, your credit score. None of these involve anyone handing anyone else a physical object in the moment the obligation is created. You work for 2 weeks and a number updates somewhere, promising you'll be paid later. That's not so different from the ancient neighbor who gave grain and simply remembered that a debt now existed. Even the leap from grain debts to coins to paper money to digital numbers on a screen follows the same underlying pattern again and again. Humans keep looking for a physical or symbolic object stable enough to represent trust. And every time technology allows it, that object gets a little more abstract. Clay tablets, stamped metal, paper backed by gold, paper backed by nothing but government promise. Now, numbers in a database that never touch a hand at all. You might assume this abstraction is a modern problem, something unique to a card-swiping, tap-to-pay economy. It isn't. It's the oldest trend in the entire history of money. The object keeps disappearing. The trust underneath it never does. There's a psychological layer here too, one that explains why money still feels emotionally loaded even now, even though it's just an idea most of the time. Debt, historically, was never purely financial. In many ancient societies, unpaid debt could cost you your freedom, your land, sometimes members of your own family, handed over as debt bondage. The number owed wasn't abstract to the person who owed it. It was existential. Some researchers argue this history is why financial stress still triggers such a disproportionate emotional response in the modern brain, one that looks a lot like the older, more primal fear of losing your place inside your community entirely. You don't consciously think about ancient debt bondage when your card gets declined at checkout, but the wave of embarrassment, the flush in your face, the urge to explain yourself to a stranger behind a register might be running on emotional circuitry that's thousands of years older than currency itself. Being seen as unable to meet an obligation to your group was never a minor social hiccup. For most of human history, it was dangerous. So the next time you tap your card without thinking, notice the strange inheritance sitting underneath that gesture. You are not just completing a purchase. You are participating in an idea humans have been quietly refining for at least 5,000 years. An idea that started not with two strangers haggling over a chicken, but with one neighbor trusting another to remember what was owed. Tonight, when you pay for something without a second thought, you won't feel like you're taking part in one of the oldest inventions in human history. But somewhere underneath that tap of your card, your ancestors already built the whole system for you.